All right, Christophe, it is an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm so thrilled to bring your brilliance to the Water is Life community because you have one of the best understandings of Victor Schauberger's work, of how water moves in nature, of anyone in the water community these days, and the innovations that the Biodynamizer has created. They're really unique in the water space. And so I'm excited for you to share with everyone how water moves in nature, how and why water is able to access free energy, how we can optimize water to ennoble her into her highest state of consciousness, and what makes the biodynamizer particularly unique in its ability to do so. So thank you so much for coming and being willing to share all of these insights with our community.
So, first of all, I want to thank you to have the opportunity to share all what I learned the last years. It's for me a wonderful journey because I discover each day things about water, and you will see during the presentation all the magical things I could discover. You will see my approach, which is rather a mix between scientific and sensitive. You will see also all the beautiful photos and movies that I can show, and I'm very happy to share that to your audience tonight.
That's wonderful. You just echoed something that I say all the time, which is we are forever learning, and there's
Absolutely.
no end to how much there is to learn about water. You've been studying water for years. I know you're going to share with us a little bit about your background and how you became fascinated by the great mystery of water. But even after years and years of research, even looking into her as deeply and as daily as you do, we will still be learning new things about water every day for the rest of our lives. If we were to devote countless centuries to it, we would still only scratch the meniscus of what there is to know about this mysterious conduit of life.
Absolutely. So I will maybe share my screen in order to
Mm,
show you what I prepared
perfect.
for your community. I will try to remain into the timing that we agreed upon because I love to speak about water, so sometimes I can speak sometime a little bit longer. So
Well, the
uh,
nice thing
I
about this
will.
audience is they love to listen about water, so we have a lot in common there. No
Okay,
stress.
I will maybe start with presenting myself because I suppose nobody knows me, and so it's maybe the opportunity to say who am I and how that I arrived in this very specific topic, which is dynamized water. I suppose you see my screen, everything is okay.
Yes.
So in fact, I studied legal officer during 5 years, first of all. So that's my learning. And then I was during approximately 20 years in the bank, insurance, and finance sector. So completely something different towards water. And at one moment, I was 42 years, I think, I really was not, absolutely not aligned anymore with the values of the finance and banking sector. And I wanted to do something completely different. There were a lot of questions in me, and I had to answer to all those questions. And so I wrote a book in 2012, which is a book that I wrote in French, which is named Ainsi va la vie. In English, it means So Goes Life. And in fact, it's a book related to the essential questions of life, the sense of life. And after that, for me, life became completely different, and I had to do something that had some sense in my professional life. And so I started my way in the water sector, and I discovered dynamized water. And for me, it was really something absolutely magnificent, magical. And it's why I can say that I went from the spiritual life of my book to the water spirit. And you will maybe see in the following slides that I think I'm starting. I found the water spirit and some sense in the water in the water dynamization. I suppose you are still there because I don't see.
Of course, I'm still here.
Ah, okay. I see your picture, but I didn't see you anymore. It's why I was a little bit disturbed. But I would like to start with those two pictures in order to stress the fact that water is very rare on
Mhm.
Earth. A lot of people are not aware of that because they say we are on the blue planet, but the blue part of the planet is in fact due to the fact that 70% of the surface area of the planet is water, but it's the surface. And that's the
Mhm.
photo on the left part. On the right part, you have the total amount of water that is present on Earth, but in terms of volume. And the volume of all the water of Earth is in the big bubble that you see on the photo. But this part is mainly seawater, so it's not drinkable water.
Mhm.
And it represents only 10% of the total volume of the Earth. If we convert that into usable drink water, only 1% of those 10% is usable drink water. So the very little bubble on the right side of the big one is the part of water that is present on Earth and that we can use as drinkable water. So it means that it's really very rare in terms of volume and quantity. That's one point that I wanted to stress in these slides. The second slide that I wanted as introduction to the presentation that I wanted to speak about is that I make a comparison between water and the knowledge we have about water and the metaphor of the iceberg, meaning that an
Mhm.
iceberg, as you know, is approximately 10%, which is the emerged surface. And that's for me the part that we know about water and the part that is analyzed by the academic science. And they see water as a kind of physical-chemical phenomenon or characteristics. But all the way and the learnings that I did the more than the last 10 years is in fact to focus on the invisible part of the 90% of the iceberg, which is submerged, and where we can have another approach of water, and I think a much more essential approach of water, where we discover that, in fact, water, we have to see it in terms of energy and of quantum energy,
Mhm.
so information in fact. And you
Mhm.
will see that now scientific devices can show that, prove that, and explain that. And I will show you in this presentation a lot of pictures of that, a lot of analysis that I realized with scientific people here in Europe, throughout Europe, in different countries. But first of all, I would like to start with one keyword of the presentation, which is biomimicry, which is for me the real source of inspiration and approach of water. For me, everything is in nature.
Mhm.
If we look to nature, we try to understand nature, and we try to copy nature. And these are the words of Victor Schauberger, which you spoke about. Well, then we are on the right path. And so I start with this famous Austrian forest ranger who popularized the terms of vortex, which is the whirling or swirling movement of water that he observed in rivers, and the term of implosion energy, which concentrates the energy into the water thanks to this vortex movement, the centripetal movement of water, which is the way water moves when it flows freely in nature. And on the right part, you see two pictures or two drawings realized by Victor Schauberger when observing the way water moves. And you will see in all my presentation, I will refer to his observings and to this famous phrase, observe, understand, and copy nature, which is really the definition of biomimicry.
Mhm.
And so, first of all, I would like to show you a simulation of the birth of our galaxy just after the Big Bang, 13.5 billion years ago, where there was still a lot of dust and gases in the cosmos. And you see that the initial movement of the galaxy was effectively a vortex movement. It
Mhm.
turned like this during billions of years before there were some stars, planets, and so on. And that's really, that's NASA who simulated that based upon all their knowledge and in order to enable us to understand what happened at the very beginning. And so we see that the natural movement, the initial original movement of life is really the vortex movement. That's the first point. And this vortex movement, we will see it in all the expressions of the universe, nature, humans, and water. And I will show you some pictures. On the left side, you see the Milky Way, which is
Mhm.
our galaxy. On the right side, I will show you a cross section that is also a simulation of the European Space Agency that was made, and that explains how the Milky Way is, what is the shape, the pattern of the Milky Way. That's the cross section, which is approximately 100,000 light years of diameter. But when we have another look and that the camera, if you want, have another angle to look at the galaxy, we see something completely different, which is, of course, this spiral movement of our Milky Way. And at one moment, the camera will show where the sun, our closest star, is. And so we will know where Earth is. You see there at the red cross, the sun is present. And so we see that we are really present in a big vortex movement.
Mhm.
This vortex movement, we see it also, of course, in the clouds. That's the Hurricane Katrina, which you know in the US, which made a lot of damages, of course. But we see it also in trees and in trunks of trees. But what people do not know usually is that this movement is also adopted by the circulation of the tree sap that flows in a vortex way just behind the trunk and go to the leaves in this vortex movement. We see it, of course, also in some shells. And I like the picture on the right because we see it inside. It's an X-ray photo that we usually not see, and we see like a double DNA movement, double helix like the DNA, which
Mhm.
is inside the shell and which has also this vortex movement. We see it, of course, in the heart of the human. So the proteins are vortex shaped. The keratin molecules, which is the hair protein, but also the fingerprint ripples, and of course the cordis vortex, which is our heart, is in fact also a vortex, and of course the DNA double helix, which is the house of our genetic information, and which is really in our cells the core of our genetic information. Well, when we see all those vortex movements in nature, I want to make the link now between what we see in the universe, in nature, in humans, this vortex movement in natural water. How do natural water moves when it flows freely in nature? Well, due to the Coriolis forces, I will not go too much into detail, but know that the Earth, of course, is rotating on itself, and that the Earth is in orbit around the Sun, and the Sun is in orbit around the center of the galaxy. All this spiral movement, which comes from cosmos, is the reason why the winds and the vertical ocean currents, so the movements of water in sea, are moving in vortex ways. So it's not because somebody puts an engine behind, it's because we are part of a global universe that moves this way. Well, that's the reason why water and air moves in vortex way. It's due to the Coriolis forces. And we can see it, of course, in the river water. And I can maybe that are all of them are little movies that I made myself. So in natural rivers, and you see, I can show you it again. That water is really turning like this in vertical vortices. We can see it. The first one was in France, and here that's in Croatia, where we see that this movement is also adopted by natural rivers at some places where there are some stones and so. So you see those movements in natural water, but we can see it also, and that's taken in Belgium, and I put a slow motion in order to see a longitudinal vortex. So it's not a vertical one, it's a longitudinal due to the stones. And then you see that, of course, the water is turning and swirling this way. We see it, of course, in the sea, this movement of this vortex movement. We see it in Norway, where there are some tides, and you see in the water how the water behaves. And then there is one very nice video made by NASA, I suppose you know it, about the surface currents. Each second of the video is in fact 3 days in reality. Those movie has been done by satellites, US satellites, and it has been retouched by computer in order to show the real movement of water, of seawater. And it's in fact the surface current, the first 600 meters of seawater. And these are colored in white. And so we see like a kind of Van Gogh movement, and they did it for all the oceans in the world. And we see that everywhere, in every sea, every ocean is moving this way. So a vortex movement way. But these are very big vortices, of course. Last one, this one is relatively interesting also, I think. It's the water sprout or spout. which is also a vortex that happens just above the sea when there is difference um, in temperature between the air and the seawater. Well, all those movements, I will try to reproduce them in the biodynamizer, and I will show you just after how. But first of all, I would like to share the first interesting analysis that was done in Germany related to the benefits of the vortex for water. And this analysis has been done by the Institut für Strömungswissenschaften in Germany. And what did they see? They took some water from a natural river, which is the Mettmann River, and they took water before a factory, just after the factory in the river, and then 8 kilometers further away in the same river. And they looked at the quality of the water by a specific methodology of yes, that's a terrible word for a French-speaking person, of inflorescences. I hope I say it in the right way, but the
Inflorescences. Mm-hmm.
yes, thank you, thank you, Isabel. And in fact, the more inflorescences there are, the more energy is present in the water. That was one measure. And the other measure was to count the number of aquatic species which were present in the water. So just before the plants, they could see that there was a magnificent inflorescences on the water, thanks to the sensitive drops methodology. And they saw that there were approximately 40 aquatic species. Just after the plant, they did the same. They didn't find any more inflorescences, first of all, so it was completely flat. And secondly, there were only two aquatic species that remained into the
Mm.
water because it was polluted. Well, the initial and original qualities of the water before the plant were recovered after 8 kilometers of flow, which means that during those 8 kilometers of free flow water with vortices, the water will self purify itself thanks to the vortex movement. And
Mm.
I think this is really the key word to understand the importance of vortices for water is the self-purifying capacity and the capacity to give life again. And that is to be put in relation with, I suppose you know about it, the energy cascade from Kolmogorov-Richardson, which is the following. When you have a lot of energy into the water with great voltages, in fact, those big voltages will transmit the movement and the energy, the kinetic energy of the movement that is inside this vortex movement to smaller, faster rotating vortices in fractal. And this will enable the energy, first of all, to be dissipated, but secondly, to transmit this energy inside the structure of water at a molecular level by exciting the molecules to higher rotational or vibrational energy states. And that's the Professor Marc-Henri, which is very famous in France, who observed that and who says that. And this is very interesting because it means that in nature, this kinetic energy, in fact, stays inside the vortex, but transmits the energy of movement to the molecular level and
Mm,
vibrational energy state of water. And that is one
interesting.
of the explanations of what we will see in the scientific analysis that I will show you a little bit further in the presentation. I continue with my little trip of natural water, and in the keyword of observing what happens in nature and especially in relation with water. And in fact, it's not only the voltages that we see in natural water, but we see also that when water is flowing freely, it is also naturally oxygenated. And I will show you some little movies that I did in the French Alps. And this is, of course, underwater with my iPhone. And then you will see, you see that underwater you have a lot of oxygen bubbles due to the movement of this water. Well, this is very interesting because this is really living water. And when we go just above the surface, we see that we are really in nature in the middle of the mountains, and that natural water is constantly in movement, and that this movement under the water enables the water to be re-oxygenated. And we see that also in very little waters that is taken in Belgium on the left part. You see a lot of oxygen bubbles. You see it's a very little river in the Belgian Ardennes. And on the right side, I put like an echo, a drawing of Leonardo da Vinci, who saw that
Mm,
also because you see here the water which is coming into a kind of a big pool, and you see all the bubbles that he drew, and he saw already, first of all, the vortices, and
mhm.
secondly, the oxygen which is present in water when there is movement. And so those two big aspects, which are very important, are present in this drawing, reason why I wanted to show it at this place of the presentation.
I've never seen that drawing by Da Vinci before. That's stunning.
Yeah. Then I continue. I spoke about voltages, about oxygen, and now I will speak about lights, because natural water, of course, is exposed to light. And when you see the interaction between water and light, you see it everywhere. I start on the left part, the picture. That's a picture in my garden, and it was during dew, very early in the morning. You have a little drop of water in the grass, and it was a beautiful morning there, and you see the energy and the light that comes into this bubble, and I just catched my iPhone just catched the meeting of the light and the water bubble. And that is really the
Mm,
marriage between water, which is a kind of interface, and the energy that comes from the sun. The second picture is the one that you maybe know from the Yosemite Park, where you see water vapor at the waterfalls of Yosemite Park. But you see that this water vapor is completely crossed by the sunlight. The same for just at the right, the seawater. And then on the right, completely right side, you see that ice crystals in sky. It's when it's very cold outside. Well, when the sun crosses through those crystals, you can have this kind of ice crystals in the sky due to the prism of the light, the sunlight through the water crystal. Here I can maybe show you also again the Yosemite Park. I think this is very interesting as video because we see really the visible light which goes through the waterfall of Yosemite Park, and we see all the colors. But you have to be aware that all those colors of the sunlight are only 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum that scientific devices can measure. And you see it on the right scheme or graph. You see that the visible spectrum, which is 100% of our reality, is in fact a very little part of the energy that surrounds us and that the devices that we develop can measure. So, of course, the real energy goes far beyond, because it would be very arrogant to think that human people have developed devices that can measure all the energy that is present in the universe. So in fact, our reality, and that's the conclusion of this slide, is really a very, very little part that we see. And the energy that surrounds us go through the water, and the water restructures itself and takes this energy in it and transmits it to the people who drink it. And that's
Mhm.
really very, very important. And I will show you after, when I speak about the analysis, that we can measure, show, and prove that. We have evidence of that today. Another thing, we spoke about light, but there is also magnetism on Earth. You know that Earth is a magnetosphere, uh, and that preserves us towards the solar waves of the sun. Otherwise, we would all of us would be burned. But all this magnetism, of course, is transmitted also to the water. And so I will maybe show you a little simulation of this magnetism of our planet, which is a kind of donut, which protects us, but which always transmits us this energy. We speak about a geodynamo, in fact.
Mm.
This is really a kind of shield that protects us from the too high energy that comes from the sun. And thanks to that, we have the boreal, I don't know how you say it.
Aurora Borealis?
Yes, aurora boreal, absolutely. Thank you. Last thing that water captures is, of course, the minerals. When you see here a kind of marble, I took that when I did the trip in the mountains, and those marble, we find it back in the little rivers, and due to erosion, water takes it with it, and all those minerals, first of all, remains in the water, but also transmit to the water the energy that they have. So minerals are very important in the water. And I will speak again about minerals, because without minerals, we cannot dynamize. Without minerals, there is no possibility to stock energy. It's why osmosis water is not a good idea. We really need to have the most natural water possible, which is water with minerals inside, because it's also like this that water is present in nature. And so now I can start with all those how knowledge and how can I say lessons that we can find in nature. Well, all my work was to put all this knowledge and those movements and energy in the building of the biodynamizer that you see on the right part, which is made out of copper, silver, gold, and around it you have some minerals, but I will show you that afterward. But the water is flowing inside the device and reproduces really what happens in nature. And in order to make it a little bit clear, I have this slide where on the left part I try to show you the scheme of the water cycle when we look at nature. The water cycle, which lasts approximately 1 month in nature, well, this water cycle is reproduced in the biodynamizer in 1 second. And that's the way and the process of the device. It's to reproduce in 1 second what happens in 1 month in nature and to regain the nature of water thanks to what we can see, understand in nature, and so copy it in the biodynamizer. So I'm really a child of Schauberger doing that. In order to go up a little bit further and to explain you a little bit more about the biodynamizer, you see that that's the skeleton, the inside part where the water is flowing inside the copper parts. And around in the cylinder, you have approximately 10 kilos of minerals. You have lava rock, Carrara marble, and informed ceramics. But you have also magnetic fields at two different points, above and in the middle. And then you have different kind of vortices, centripetal vortices, meanders, and a beautiful egg. But I will show you a little bit more about those forms. But all of them have a real utility in the water treatment. And it took me more than 5 years to build this device, to find the factories who could make them, and all the pieces, there are 30 pieces to build one biodynamizer. Each piece is tailor-made. So it's really a very tough work. And now
Mhm.
it's really automated. So, and I think the evolution of the device is completely finished. And when I see the results and the benefits that we can get thanks to the device, I think I obtain the balance of the right movements, the right magnetic fields, and the right minerals.
Yeah, I just want to highlight for a moment here for anyone watching or listening that this is not your average flow form. And this is why this is one of the only whole home water structures that I recommend. I do recommend some other flow form structures that might be a little bit more affordable or accessible. But in terms of quality, if you're looking for the highest quality, this is in a category of its own, in a league of its own. And you really only have to look at the design here to see that and how carefully and intentionally it's crafted according to nature's designs. Because, I mean, look at this. So I'm curious particularly about the magnetic field and the informed ceramics. If you can go a little bit more into depth about those, I think the rest are I'm sure you'll get to them in a minute, and some of them are kind of self-explanatory. But when we're talking about the two sections of magnetic fields, are these South Pole? Are they North Pole? Are they pretty balanced magnetic fields? Are they asymmetrical? And then with the informed ceramics, can you tell us a little bit more about what that is? Is it similar to Kelby ceramics? What kind of ceramics are used in there?
Yes, in fact, the magnetic fields there are different directions of magnets. The magnet above, which is a big one and which is coated in real gold, 24K carats, in fact, is a kind of donut magnet with a North Pole above, South Pole under, and it means that the magnetism, it goes from north to south like a donut, going up and then down, comes back, like in fact the magnetosphere that I show you when I showed you the magnetosphere of the Earth. And so this part is really the movement of magnetism is just the same as the magnetosphere. This one,
Mm.
the first one. The four magnets of the middle are diametrical magnets, meaning that they go from left to right and from right to left. Why? It's because at this point, the water is swirling the fastest, and we need more than 2 meters per second velocity of water associated with diametrical magnets waves in order to treat limestone. This is the part where limestone is pulverized in a kind of white powder and treats limestone. Because as you said, the device is placed just after the water meter for the whole house. It's not only to have the best possible drinkable water with full of energy, but it's also to treat limestone and to avoid a water softener which rejects salt and which do not filter water. So that is really awful because it removes, so the water disher or water softener, excuse me, water softener removes minerals which are good for the health and replace the minerals by salt, which is, or sodium, which is bad for the health. And so this is really what we do not have to do to have good water, which is good for the health. So in fact, the biodynamizer has to integrate also part of its mechanism in treating limestone. And that's where limestone is treated. And then your last question about the informed ceramics, that was made by a Japanese, which name is Stereo Higa. It's certified ceramics, which means that in fact it are microorganisms which are pulsing infrared waves towards the water. And infrared is really very compatible with living organisms because all low frequencies are good for living organisms. High frequencies have to be avoided because they kill living organisms. Reason why I put informed ceramics there, but also the Carrara model is very important in terms of transmitting energy, which is also the case for volcanic lava. And you see maybe here under, that's a little secret, there is a little a little bottle there, blue bottle, and that's the secret that is added since 2 weeks in the new biodynamizers. And maybe next time we will have the opportunity to speak only about this little bottle, which is really a magical bottle, where I
Mm.
put some very specific seawater, which is informed and a very energetic water, and this
Mm.
will transmit also a lot of information and energy to the water once it went through the biodynamizer. And I let this tasted by a lot of persons here in Europe, and they were all amazed about what they felt and saw about the energy present in this little bottle. But it will be for next time. But know that there is an additional aspect in the latest production, and so I think it's really worthwhile to add that point.
Interesting. And new innovations. You guys are always keeping things fresh.
Yes, absolutely. So in fact, here I will go a little bit quicker because I want only to show with some drawings from Victor Schauberger the why I had the biodynamizer built this way. Maybe which is interesting is the picture down right. This is a photo of the ends when you do a picture of the here the centripetal vortex, and you put off the hat and you do a picture of the upper part and you go down. So it's the way the water is following. It's like a James Bond introduction movie. Well, it's a triple centripetal vortex in which water is flowing at the first part of the biodynamizer. This is how the water will follow the forms of the biodynamizer when entering into the biodynamizer. Here I can show you on the right part how water flows when it comes out of the tube, and you see it's really like a double helix, just like the DNA helix that has just the same movement. Well, uh, we see it for water just the same. We see the two who have the same movement in parallel,
Mm.
hoping that you see it in a clear
Mm-hmm.
way.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the meanders, and in the middle you have, of course, the drawing of Schauberger. On the left part, it's a picture of a meander of a river, and on the right part is the meander that has been reproduced for the biodynamizer. But now you will see something that you never saw, because we will enter. First of all, I show you here the way, again, in the middle, a drawing of Schauberger, who saw the longitudinal vortices in streams, and you see it on the left part how the reality when we film that in nature. On the right part, this is one of the tubes that is integrated in the biodynamizer and which enables me to have this movement in the biodynamizer. But my favorite part is, of course, the egg, which respects the golden ratio, but you will see what happens inside. And in fact, what happens inside is really magic. You see the big photo of the egg because I had one of the devices made in plastic in order to see how water is flowing inside when water flows in the biodynamizer. And you will see what happens when the device works. It goes relatively quickly. I can do it again if you want to, but look what happens. I will activate it now.
Mm. Wow.
Look now.
Yeah.
Tack. And
Ah.
that's the secret. In fact, I do it again. In fact, here the egg is empty and it's filling with water,
Mm-hmm.
and normally it's always filled with water. So in fact, continuously you have a columnar vortex, which is the climax of vortices, thousands of vortices per second that are water in free flow inside water. And that's absolutely amazing because the kinetic energy is at its climax, and that's the secret of the biodynamizer. Everything happens
It
in
looks like it's in a laminar flow right there at the end, like a laminar vortex where it seems perfectly still and stable, and yet there's this incredible energetic action happening internally.
absolutely, absolutely. And it continues far beyond the egg in the sanitary pipes of the house because power, this vortex power is really very amazing. And in fact, what happens inside is just like on the left part, it was taken in the US like a water sprout, you see. And so I have all the kind of vortices that I saw in nature. I reproduce them in the biodynamizer. And in fact, in the biodynamizer, if you take the complete device, and that's here, it's also on the website that you can see it. It has 21 dynamization principles which are integrated in the device. It's why it took me more than 5 years to develop it. And it makes this device the most complete in the world and the most analyzed in the world. And it's why it got in April the golden medal at the International Exhibition of Inventions in Geneva. This is in Switzerland. This is really the Oscars of the inventions for the whole world. There were more than thousands inventions, and the Biodynamizer was one of the competitors, and it won the golden medal. So it was really, I was so happy that all this work could obtain this award. And I received also a second award at this fair, which was the ISTA Award, which is an award given by the International Strategy and Technology Alliance of Hong Kong, of the University of Hong Kong. So in fact, very not long ago, the biodynamizer, it's in its final state, was confirmed in its quality by the jury members.
Very
And
well
before that,
deserved.
yeah, and before that, we got also in Lyon the Innovation Award that was 4 years ago. So in fact, we got already some awards for this device because water is so important, and when you treat it in a natural way, well, you see a lot of benefits. And the benefits, I will try very shortly to summarize them now. And just after that, I will give you and show you the analysis, some of them, some of the analyses that I did the last 10 years, and which are really very interesting, I think, for your audience. So first of all, if you want to summarize the benefits that you can expect and hope from dynamized water, first of all the clients say once they taste for the first time dynamized water by the biodynamizer, wow, and that's 100% of the clients, so silky, soft water with a round taste. It stimulates to drink. It gives a willingness to drink, but it's so soft, so round. It's really very, very soft. That's one point. Secondly, and you will see in the scientific analysis that the three keywords and key benefits that you can obtain by drinking dynamized water is first having water with more energy. Secondly, a water that is much more hydrating for your cells. And thirdly, a water that is less oxidized, which means that it struggles free radicals that are responsible for cellular aging. So those three keywords, more energy, more hydrating, and less oxidizing, are very, very important because it's really another way of understanding water and its importance for the human health. That was the second graph. The third one, of course, as the device is placed just after the water meter, it's a device that treats all the water of all the house. And that's very interesting because you have it not only to drink, you have it also for the bath, for the shower, for everything, and you don't need any more water softener. And so that is very interesting. And it's so much interesting to have it globally because we are in relation with water very often. And finally, it's ecological solution because thanks to dynamized water, you don't need to buy any plastic bottles anymore or to have a water softener with that uses salts and rejects salt and sodium into nature. That is really in one slide the key benefits of dynamized water. If you want it a little bit, but I will not repeat myself maybe, but that are the two devices because first of all, of course, you have the blue device, which is the biofilter, which is an activated carbon filter that I first place. And then I put the biodynamizer, which is the device in the cylinder. And so you saw what was inside, the copper part. And so the water is coming from above and go under. It doesn't need any electricity. There is no water waste like a water softener because it's a mechanical process thanks to the pressure of the water meter. And once the water went through those two devices, you have this filtered and biodynamized water in all the house, at all the taps of the house. If you do a kind of global comparison of the different ways of treating water in order to locate the activated carbon filter and dynamization of water. And I did it a little bit like uh, uh, a street light. I don't know. In French, we say un feu rouge. When you are driving, you have green, orange, and red. Green is good. Orange is between two, not really good, but not too bad. And red, of course, is bad. Well, when you have this kind of legends, I put the bullets in relation to different qualitative characteristics of water, and then I put in the left part the different ways of treating the water, which is, first of all, of course, the way I advise, which is filtering and dynamization. For me, everything is green, of course, because all the different characteristics are met, and so it's a positive score. For bottled water, it's a medium score. Tap water, which is not treated, is even worse. Softened water is really bad. And then osmosis water is good for certain aspects and bad for others, and certainly for the structure of the water and the energy present in water. So in fact, if and this kind of table you find it back on the website, and so you can also download it, and you have all this information on the website. Also on the library tab, you have all my presentation in 50 pages summary, so you can review all that. And now I arrive, if I don't go too fast, to the fourth part, which is the scientific part, which I will try to go through maybe 5 or 6 scientific analyses that I did the last 10 years, which are the
Well, I
easiest.
welcome you to take your time and go in depth on these. I know people will appreciate. To me, this is one of the most fascinating parts is how is this being proven out? What experiments are being done? How can we validate all of this? And I know you guys have been scientifically rigorous in showing the effects of this.
Great. So I will try to be as easy, as simple as possible. If there is something, Isabel, that is not clear for you, don't hesitate to intervene and to say it, and so I can give additional information. The first slide, of course, is the easiest one. It's maybe also the less scientific one, but it's the one that speaks to the most people because everybody can understand it. It's the Masaru Emoto-like methodology, which is the analysis of water crystals that I'm sure a lot of you know, but I will give some additional information why I think that this analysis that I asked to do by Ernst Braun in Switzerland is nearly a scientific analysis. I will explain it you just after the following. Thus, if the principle is always to go from left to right. Left is tap water, and a crystal of tap water, it means that we take a drop, we put it at -30, we put it under the microscope, and with the heat of the lamp, it melts to approximately 4 or 5, -4, -5 degrees, and then we see the crystals that we can photograph. And so when we look at tap water, the tap water crystal, we see that it's completely destructured, exploded, and that there is approximately nothing as structure. The same tap water, when it goes through the biodynamizer, and that I crystallize it in the same way, and that are the 3 pictures above, and I did it in 3 different countries, in France, in Belgium, and in Switzerland. We see magnificent, and I have a lot more, but I show you only 3 in order to illustrate the principle. We see magnificent hexagonal crystals with fractals, and we see a magnificent structure. Well, this structure is just the same as the crystal that we get when we crystallize a drop of mountain water from the Swiss Alps, and that is the water crystal just under the 3 crystals that you see at the right. And in fact, you see that the tap water crystal that has been dynamized has just the same structure as a mountain water crystal. And we did that with tap water. We did it also, and that is maybe interesting for you. We did it in another way. I will try to explain it in English. It's not easy. If I knew that you were eager to know more about it, I would have shown you other pictures of this one, but I'll try to explain you some of the pictures above also. We did it not only with the same water, which is tap water for this example, but we did it also with osmosis water. Osmosis water has always a destructured structure when we crystallize it. But we took dynamized tap water that we put in a kind of little bottle, un flacon, une pipette in French. In a laboratory, you have a little, I don't know how you say it. Can you help me, Isabel?
A little flask
A
or
kind of
a
little, very little bottle in glass, a tube, voilà, a little glass tube,
test tube.
a test tube. We put in the test tube dynamized water, and we put this tube half in a petri dish of distilled water, osmosis water. And we took then a drop of osmosis water that we crystallized, and we got again beautiful hexagonal crystals. And that was really amazing because, in fact, the dynamized tap water, which was in the tube, was not in contact, direct contact with the distilled water. It remained in the tube. It was not poured in the distilled water. Well, it means that the energy of the dynamized water in the tube was transmitted to the molecular structure of distilled water, because when we took a drop of this distilled water, we saw beautiful hexagonal structures and so crystals. Was it understandable what I said?
It's very clear.
So in fact, this methodology becomes sometimes closer to a scientific analysis. That was my point, but it's
Hmm.
also an easy way to understand what happens when water has been dynamized.
Hmm.
That's the first thing. Second thing, and that is, whoops, wait a minute, much more interesting and much more scientific. Always you look from left to right, and I will explain the two pictures. The two pictures are in fact water drops that has been photographed by an electrophotonic camera. An electrophotonic camera is a camera that photographs water drops um, in the ultraviolet spectrum, and the principle is the corona effect, if you understand that. It
Hmm.
means that it is photographing streamers or the light energy or the photons that are emitted by a water drop. So as we can convert photons into energy, pure energy, it's a real scientific indication of not only the light that is present in water, but also the energy that it has.
Hmm.
And so on the left part, we have a tap water drop, and you have to see two things on the left picture. First of all, the shape of this picture, which is really spherical, and secondly, the crown around the that you see, the blue part, which is the light that comes out of the water drop. So the energy that the water has, the photons that are emitted by the water drop. That is tap water that was photographed by the electrophotonic camera. When the same water flows through the biodynamizer and that we photograph again, we have the picture on your right. And you see two things on this picture. First of all, you see that the streamers, so the little flames, are much bigger, and you see red, orange, yellow, which means that there is a great intensity of light, so of photons, with a lot of radiation, which means that there is much more energy present in the water. That is one thing. And secondly, you see that the form of the drop is complete more is spreaded, not spherical anymore, but it spreads on the electrode, which means that the surface tension of water is much lower, and that is very important in terms of molecular or cellular hydration. The
Hmm.
lower the surface tension of water, the better the cellular hydration. And so here on this slide, we see two things. One, the evidence of a better hydration, and secondly, the evidence of more energy. And that were photos taken in 2019. All the photos that I did in the laboratory in France, the Coramp laboratory, were expertised by the famous professor Marc-Henri. And that gave me the opportunity to go here because all those pictures, and there were 256 pictures, were not only expertised, but after that, in 2025, there was also a statistical analysis of all the photos by algorithms in order to see if the series of non-dynamized electrophotonic pictures were reproducible, and the same for dynamized series. And there, I will not go deeper in the explanation of how they did, but they used 30 parameters with computers, and they saw that there was no more difference than 1.23% between all the series of non-dynamized and the same for dynamized. But the conclusion of the expertise and the additional statistical analysis is that the scientific evidence of all the pictures is proved at 100%. So now the pictures that you see here, and I will explain what you can conclude about the three pictures just after, is, so the conclusion is that it is 100% statistically reliable, the conclusion of the analysis. And what can be concluded in this picture? And this is really the heart of the findings of the last 10 years. On the upper part, you see an electrophotonic picture, of course, left tap water, not dynamized, right, dynamized. You see, first of all, that there is more energy. And again, you see that the drop has been spreaded and that the surface tension is lower. So more hydrating and more energy in terms of light or photons that is transmitted to the person who will drink this water. That's the first level of the picture. Second level, that is scientific imagery, which is fast Fourier transform pictures. And you see a difference between left and right in terms of radiation of the light. You see that once water has been dynamized, it has much more amplitude and radiation. It means two things, this additional radiation. First of all, there are more available electrons. That is very important to fight oxidation. So for redox purpose, it fights free radicals, and so it fights olderness. And so the antioxidation is really very important. It means that you need available electrons to have antioxidant water. And so we can deduct it from the pictures in the center. And secondly, we can say that dynamized water pulses at lower frequencies, which is very compatible for living organisms. And that is very important again. So the low frequencies and the more available electrons are very valuable characteristics of dynamized water. That is for the medium pictures. And the last pictures, which are also very, very, very interesting, you see in terms of difference between the structure of the light left and right, that at the right part, you have much more geometrical figures. And in the center, you see a kind of hexagonal figure or pattern that you saw also when we crystallize the water. So we can see a parallel between the hexagonal structure of water crystals when they are dynamized and of the light that we can see in the center of the water drop that has been dynamized. But this additional geometrical structure means that there is more information and that the structure of dynamized water is much better organized. And that is also very important in terms of transmitting of information and of frequencies that can help for health reasons. And so that's a kind of summary that we can extract from this electrophotonic analysis. But what I really want to stress is that those pictures were expertised and put into algorithms to prove that they are reproducible and 100% reliable. And so the consequences of that are very positive for the health of people who are drinking dynamized water. And the little phrase at the right is, in fact, my summary of the 10 last years, which is energy codes, water encodes, and humans decodes. Because, in fact, the energy is present in the universe. It goes through the water and it influences its structure, but the structure which is inside our body water will transmit and has inside of it, in the frequencies of this energy, there is information, and this information can come into synchronicity with our human awareness. And so humans can decode the information which is present in the water and which comes from everywhere, from the environment, from nature, from the universe, for everywhere. If you have some questions at this stage or observation, feel free, Isabel.
I honestly, this was so comprehensive that I don't have any questions
Great.
that
So
come
I'm
up
happy.
at the moment.
Fantastic.
I just
Fantastic.
want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing this beautiful presentation and helping people to understand deeper about the nature of water, water's relationship to life force energy in general, to the movement of the cosmos, and to all of these sacred cycles that are encoded into the water, that the water then is able to bring into our bodies. I think we so rarely give honor and respect to water's true dharma, her true purpose, which is not just to hydrate, but to be a carrier of divine influence, be that light frequencies or sound frequencies, and that it's through movement and through magnetism and through the radiation from the planet that she's able to pick up on so much that our cells actually need, that our cells need these signals, our cells need this vitality, that our biology expects it from us. And because we're so divorced from nature, the water that we drink is utterly unnatural. And so, we're not aligning ourselves with those life force principles. And unless you can drink directly from a freshwater spring, ideally, the Lourdes spring in France or one of these miracle springs, you're just not getting the information that our bodies need to truly thrive. And what you've been able to do here is reproduce that and recreate that in a way that truly honors the natural geometry of all of it. So I have massive respect for your work. That's why I wanted you to come on today. I just appreciate so much all of the time and the integrity and the scientific rigor and the experimentation and just the high level of perfectionism that you've put into creating this device, which, as I said before, is unlike anything else on the market. So it was a joy to get to hear you explain it in your own words.
Thank you. Thank you for your words. It makes me happy, and it's for me it's very important to, and I thank you for what you say, because it's so much work, and it makes me warm to hear that it can be useful for other people. And so it's my pleasure to share what I discovered, because I was also very excited when I saw those pictures, and this is very important for me, those pictures. But
Mm.
I will go even further now, and you will see now something incredible. And these are the photos of photonic bridges. And I have to explain you what happens left and what happens right. left, you see the little circle here of tap water. You see above. So in fact, you have two, on the left picture, you have first of all the fingerprint, and just above you have a blue circle. In the blue circle, we put a drop of water, and you see it on the picture left. You see my finger, which I put in a kind of a circle, and just above my finger, you have a little place where you can put a water drop. And so above, we photograph with an electrophotonic camera, we photograph the light and we see what happens between the tap water that we put in the little box and my finger. And you see that nothing happens. And once we put a dynamized water drop, you look at the picture right, and that was the first time in 10 years existence of the electrophotonic camera, we see the energy of dynamized water that goes far beyond the periphery of my finger and comes into the body. And that's what they call the photonic bridge, which is the evidence of an energetic affinity between dynamized water and the energy of my body. And I did it 20 times. And you see above dynamized and under with tap water. And what you can see here, I will make it short, is that when water is dynamized, in 100% of the cases, you have those photonic bridges that occur. You have it only in 60% of the cases when it's with tap water, and never the photonic bridges goes beyond the periphery um, of the finger. And we measured the intensity of energy that was transmitted, and we could determine that the energy transmitted by dynamized water was 19.2% higher than the energy transmitted by tap water. And that was done 20 times. So in terms of reproducibility, we can confirm that dynamized water is really, in terms of energy, much better than non-dynamized water or tap water.
So in this experiment, your finger isn't actually touching the drop of water. It's just near the drop of water.
Absolutely. Look at here, the picture left. So you see,
maybe about a centimeter of space.
Yes, we put the drop in a specific little circle there. Just I think it's half a cent. It's 0.5 centimeter. So
I think
5
it's
millimeters.
fascinating considering bathing in biodynamized water because it's actually delivering photonic radiation. It's delivering light into your skin, even just bathing in the water, and never mind drinking it.
Absolutely. Then I will go a little bit further because I see that time is going on. I did also tests about surface tension, but we saw it already on the electrophotonic photographs, but I wanted to have a cross analysis in order to have evidence. And so I went to the Netherlands, and we could, with this kind of methodology, which is the platinum ring method, confirm that in dynamized water there is a lower surface tension, and that is really very important in terms of hydration of the cells and detoxination of the body. It's why I wanted to be sure of this characteristic, because it has important health consequences. This is the latest one, Isabel, and I'm doing you a little favor today because it has not been released up to now, because what is now discovered is maybe something that is really amazing, very big, and I don't want to speak it too much up to now about this because I have to check it with more people to be sure that what we could observe now in July in Geneva with Swiss doctors can be reproduced. And if it's the case, I can assure you will hear a lot about it. I will try to explain you in some words, but it's really a new paradigm if I can reproduce it again. And we will do it here next week. We start during 1 month to reproduce what we saw in end July. That was done the 25th of July. So you see, it's nearly 1 month ago.
Cutting edge.
What what did we see? We took the blood of a person, and in this blood, normally you have a lot of electrosmog, so Wi-Fi, for a cellular phone, and so on, which is present. Well, the consequence of that is that your red blood cells will clump together and take the shape of a roll, like you see it on the picture left. All right? This is not good because it means that in terms of oxygen that it can transmit to your body, it's less good. So that's not a good way of red blood cells, but unfortunately, with the modern technology that surrounds us, it's the case for the most of each of us. Well, when we look at a person who of who we take the blood, we see those rolls in on 80% of the surface area of the microscope. Once the person drinks 1 glass of water, of dynamized water, immediately the rolls detach, become free again, can deform, goes through the capillaries and transmit diffuse oxygen to the tissues and organs, deoxidize the blood, produce energy, and promote the white blood cells. And that is really incredible because that happens immediately.
Mhm.
So I thought in the first stage it was due to hydration and not to dynamization of the water. So we asked two other people to drink a water glass, and we looked with the microscope at the red blood cells, and they stayed and they remained in rolls on
Mm.
all the surface. Nothing happened. Then we asked to the person again to drink tap water. Nothing happened. And then for the third time, after 5 or 10 minutes, we asked to the person to drink dynamized tap water. And again, we saw all the rolls detach, and only 10% of the surface had red blood cells in rolls, and all the other ones were free floating red cells that could enhance the fluidity of blood circulation in the capillaries. And that
Mm.
is really amazing because the doctors say that's really the center of the energy of the body, of the quality of your blood. And if we can prove that again and again with a lot of people, and we will do it on 30 people here in September, then it will be amazing.
Beautiful. Yeah, that shows how much it's increasing the voltage of the cell membranes. You're
And
literally
it's,
restoring electromagnetism and vitality that keeps the cells apart.
yes, and in fact, the explanation, because we worked a lot on it, is here. inside the blood cells, you have hemoglobin, which has iron atoms. And in fact, the electrosmog, uh, we think that the electrosmog will magnetize the iron atoms of the hemoglobin and will have as consequence that there is a depolarization of the blood due to that electromagnetic pollution. And as the biodynamized water has more electronegative charge in excess, it will rebalance the ionic and electrostatic charges of the blood, making it possible to unstack the red blood cells and make them free again in order to have more fluidity in the capillaries. And that is for us the explanation of what we saw in the microscope. But it has to be confirmed by other doctors. For the moment, it's this doctor, Jean-Christophe Lebel, who used his microscope, and he's really very famous in Switzerland. But we will continue to dig in and to try to understand. But if we can reproduce it each time, then it's a breakthrough in terms of health.
That's so exciting. That really is genuinely unique.
Absolutely. I will maybe finish the analysis with this one, which is very interesting also, but I will go a little bit faster through it. It was we took some Escherichia coli. I suppose you know it. It's a pathogenic bacteria of the intestinal microbiota, which is important for our health.
It's
And
E. coli, basically. No.
what?
Is it E. coli?
E. coli.
Escherichia coli?
Escherichia coli, it's a pathogenic bacteria which is
Mhm.
present in our intestines.
Mhm.
You know that? You have
It
billions.
sounds like E. coli, but no, maybe
Ah,
it's
yeah,
not.
no, it's Escherichia coli.
Escherichia, okay.
It's a bad bacteria which is present
Mhm.
in our intestines. And in
Mhm.
fact, we put this bacteria, negative bacteria, in a nutrient agar, one based with dynamized water and one with non-dynamized water. And we let during 48 hours this bacteria develop itself. And then after 48 hours, we counted the bacteria to see if there was more or less bacteria, bad bacteria, in the two different petri dishes.
Mhm.
And what could we find is that in the nutrient agar based on dynamized water, there was 60% less of this negative bacteria which is present in our intestines than in the other
Mm.
one, which
Wow.
means that on a microbiological approach, dynamized water is very positive to struggle to fight negative bacteria which is present in our stomach and intestines.
Mhm. Wow, this could be huge for microbiome health.
Absolutely. And that is the last one also in July, but I will go through it. The only thing I want to say here is that we saw that there is an energy shift once we see. The two graphs are very interesting, but it should last a little while to explain them. But I explain it in some words. We saw that once the water is dynamized, the energy goes to specific frequencies which are positive for the health, and that there is a rhythmic electrodynamic organization of the energy once it has been dynamized. And that's a spectral analysis again with a scientific device. And that's my point. It's that I try always to objectify the benefits of dynamized water and to find different approaches to confirm and be coherent with other findings of other devices and other approaches, other researchers. And here it's again a new approach with a scientific device which confirms what we learned already, but it's always good to have a confirmation because this gives us very we are satisfied by this confirmation.
Mhm.
I will go very quick then through the innovative applications because you asked me some testimonials and you will see they
Mhm.
are incredible also. But I suppose you know about some germination tests. I will not stay too long. So left its seeds, mustard seeds, which are watered with tap water, and then when same tap water is dynamized and we water the seeds, we see that in terms of growing, of color, of vigor, of maturity, well, the seeds are plenty of life when they are watered with dynamized water. That's one thing. We see it again, and that's done in a laboratory. And here you have to see the development of the roots left and right. And you see that when we water the seeds, they have much longer roots, which means that they will be much better, they will um, be less exposed to water stress and have faster growing thanks to the development of their roots. That was one of our market gardeners in Canada who said us that his plants were better. They had a better taste, and that was an interesting testimonial that we get from this farm.
Mhm.
What is very interested is in Belgium, in it's a comparative observation of 120 cows, and we did that during 6 months. Two groups of 60 cows. One group drank tap water, and the other one dynamized tap water. And they were observed by computers and by medical staff. And we could observe that the cows that drank dynamized water by the biodynamizer drank 23% more water and
Mm.
produced 20% milk, more milk than the other group of 60 cows. And so now all the farmers of the region bought the biodynamizer in order to have more production. Also, we did very interesting observations in terms of bread for the reduced kneading time of the dough, a better structure of the bread, a higher dough humidity, and that was very important for the freshness of the bread. And we saw here, you see the differences in terms of dough, which is more sticky when it's dynamized. We see the difference in structure, the honeycomb structure when it's dynamized because the bubbles are finer, and we see also significantly higher humidity level when the bread is coming from dynamized water because there is approximately 60% of water that is used to make the dough of bread. So the dynamization of the water is very interesting for the um, the bakeries. That is a fabric plant in Luxembourg who uses our biodynamizer in their plant in order to make some food supplements because thanks to the biodynamizer, they reduce the oxidation of their plant extracts that they put in their ampoules. And so now they use as water only dynamized water to put in the ampoules because it's very good for the oxidation factor of the ampoules. I did, of course, because Belgium is the country of beers. And so I went to the University of Louvain and I did the first dynamized beer, which is houblon beer, because in beer you have 80% of water. And there I did also the electrophotonic pictures and so on. And when we did the comparison, it was incredible in terms of taste. That are the professors who are comparing dynamized beer, non-dynamized beer, and we saw that in terms of taste, the dynamized beer was much softer, silkier, and finer bubbles, and a better taste. In fact, less bitterness and a better balance. So, in fact, Houblon got a lot of awards. The World Beer Award here in London, the Superior Taste Award in Brussels, the gold medal in Italy, Milano, the gold medal in Hong Kong. So in fact, it has been really a success in terms of taste, and that was thanks to the water, dynamized water that was used. And now, as I promised you, Isabel, I hope I'm not too long, but I will show you some quantum pictures of photographs, real photographs that has not been modified and that I got from the photograph itself, and where you see very strange things that can happen in water. Do we have some minutes left or to show that?
We have a few minutes.
This I will go through. Yes, that's the that's the. Do you know the CymaScope? You know that?
Of course, cymatic sound waves.
So then I will go further. Did you know about the Marion geometry?
The Marion geometry. Tell us about that. Golden ratio in the waveforms of the cymatics.
That we find in the geometrical structures when we put some frequencies in the water, and that we find back the golden ratio in the water. Did you know about that?
What's interesting, do those show up more so with biodynamized water than with regular water if you put the same sound frequencies through?
In fact, no, that was done by English people. It's the sound water. I will show you how it happens. So in fact, they put water in a device, and under that there is a loudspeaker. Is that the right term? To put some music. And so the water is moving depending upon the frequency of what is transmitted to the water. And when we take the superficial layer of the water, we see a kind of Masaru Emoto 2.0. We see that the water is always changing in its structure depending upon the frequency that is transmitted to the water. That's one point, and that we could see it in the water crystals. But here it's animated because it's another technique, another approach. Well, those people who did those sound images went further, and they transformed the electromagnetic waves of stars, human heartbeats, and human cells in sound waves, meaning hertz. And they put them in this device in order to make the water move. And each time the water moves and there are intersections, they put a point, they connect the points, and they are able to have geometric patterns. And the incredible thing is that in all the electromagnetic waves of stars, human heartbeats, cells, and so on, they could find the same geometrical structures, which all of them respect the golden ratio 1 towards 1.618, which is phi, the golden ratio. So everything, in fact, is linked, not only the stars, but humans, everything, all the creation is linked, and we can see it through the water and the energy that goes through it. That's the point. That's the Marion geometry that has been developed. That's a harmonic. I will go further. I will show you this one. This one is rather interesting. It was taken by a person in Canada. It's a cloud, and you see a face in the cloud because, of course, clouds are little water molecules, and in fact, sometimes the water molecules in the cloud can also have some patterns, very specific patterns, which can be interpelling. You see it?
Mm-hmm.
These are photos done by a person of which name is Laurent Costa. And in fact, it's the same technique of water crystals, but he sees a lot of things in those pictures. But maybe I'm a little bit too far and I will go a little bit quicker. But here you have a lot of pictures which are crystallized pictures, which I can show you maybe another time. I will go a little bit.
I love Laurent Costa's work. He's one of my favorite crystallographers.
Ah, yes, well, and that's Ernst Braun. We see also some things into the crystals, and they were not retouched or something. This water was put on a Bible, and we see a kind of Madonna with a Christ, Jesus Christ on its knees, which is very interpelling. So it means really that water is capturing the energy or the information, and that it stocks it in its structure, and when we crystallize it, we can see some information that has been captured by the water. So it's really very amazing. But here we see sometimes also some forms. You see some Madonnas, that's a fountain, that's water in a river, and on the right part, it's a horse that we can see. And here in some rivers, we can sometimes see some faces. They are surrounded by some squares in order to help you to see them. But we can, if we photograph water in movement in rivers, sometimes you can see some very strange figures.
You
I
often see these morphic images in boiling water as well, photography of boiling water.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And the latest one, I don't know if you see the panther face here. Do you see it?
Panda face. Oh, a
A
panther face.
panther
Yeah.
with the two eyes
hmm
and the nose, and its
It's
voilà.
paws.
Here you have some, yes, some movements, but we have to take more time to go through it. But I would like to go in conclusion in order to show the devices once again, to say that it's really very easy to place, because there is no electricity, no maintenance. The only thing that has to be replaced is the filter cartridge once a year, and for the rest, the biodynamizer, you have it for your whole life. There is no maintenance, no water waste, nothing. So that's it's very easy to place, very ecological. And I always finish the conferences by some images that are filmed by the International Space um, uh, Station uh, that films the oceans and the fine pellicule of water between the universe and planet Earth in order to say that it's a very rare liquid, but very valuable liquid. And I hope that I could share some additional understandings about the water and especially dynamized water.
Well, thank you so much for all the understandings and the discoveries that you've shared today. I know that this is a conversation that people can come back to over and over again to chew on, each different facet of what you shared. There's so much richness here, and I appreciate you going into depth on so many of these aspects, and especially, as I said before, your findings, your ingenuity, your inventiveness, and your tenacity to create something so unique and so effective within the water world, because there are a lot of copycats out there, and the Biodynamizer is my favorite because it really stands out. So it's been such a joy to hear your perspective on it firsthand as the inventor and the creator and the very well-deserved award winner of all of that. And as always, folks, if you're listening and you want to get your hands on the Biodynamizer or find out more about it, you can find it at waterislife.shop. Just search for Biodynamizer. You can use the code waterslife10 for a discount on it. And where can folks find you, Christophe, if they want to stay in the loop of the research that you're doing, these incredible experiments that you guys are still conducting all the time, all of the new innovations that you're constantly coming out with? Where can people find you?
Well, they can find me on the website. They can send some mails. I always answer. On the other hand, all my presentations are on the website in all languages, in 5 different languages, on the library tab, and they are continuously updated. I did it already again this morning, and I will do it again next week. So it's constantly updated. There are 50 pages which are a very good summary of all my work. On the other hand, we publish also a lot on the social media, on YouTube. I have a lot of conversations in different languages with different people who are specializing in water. So I give a lot of conferences also, and I would love to come to the US and to show all those fabulous images on big screens. And I will certainly do that in the following months or years, because I'm sure there is a big public in the US or in England for dynamized water.
Yes. Well, you are an absolute gift to this world. I have so much admiration for the way that you've allowed yourself to be a channel of water's wisdom and innovation that the world needs now more than anything else. So, my prayer is that this will ripple out to all of the people who genuinely need to experience this in their own bodies, and in the land that they get to be stewards of, and the plants and animals that need this water medicine. And I foresee this just growing and growing over the coming years. So I look forward to seeing one of your talks in person, getting to hang out with you in the States one day. And thanks again, Christophe, for being here.
Thank you so much, Isabel.
Everyone, thank you so much for listening. Be well and be water, my friend.